Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is a prep and lifestyle coach. Today's guest is Justin Jacoby. Justin, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Quentin. Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Justin. And I'm excited to chop it up with you, dude. The first question that I have for you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Of all time, it would be, I have like one that doesn't compete anymore and one that's like still technically an active bodybuilder, and that would be Flex Lewis and Lee Priest. And so I remember like Flex Lewis was the first bodybuilder I ever really like came across on like Instagram. That was how I kind of like really like learned about bodybuilding. I mean, I knew what the sport was. I got into weightlifting pretty early because of my dad. But I didn't really know anything about it. I knew no names. I did know Ronnie Coleman, but I think like everybody knows him. You have to live under a rock to not know who he is. But I like just started watching his old Gaspari videos. And if anyone remembers those, it's like ages ago, but they were cool. And he was just like in his like apartment doing his thing with Gaspari, training in like Tennessee at the time, I think. And that was just like, he was just like somebody I was like, wow, I feel like I look like this guy too, like red hair, red beard, like, and so I just thought he was like the coolest thing ever. And then Lee Priest, I started like learning about, like, so after I did my very first show, several people said that like the way I had my hair slicked back and like just my face, I guess, like they're like, you kind of look like a young Lee Priest. And it's funny when I look back at that now, I'm like, a young Lee Priest, like 20 years old, was like 220 pounds ripped shredded. So like, I didn't look like that, but I just admire his physique. He's like a crazy guy right now, but but his physique is amazing. And that's something that I like really like looked at, it's just great proportions and everything. So he's somebody who I actually like learned about later on in bodybuilding. I was like, wow, this is like one of the best physiques I've ever seen. So. Plus, I resonate with the short guys. I'm not a very tall person.
Very cool, man. Something just to kind of relate to Flex Lewis. I actually own a gym, and I met him when he was a Gaspari athlete at the 2008 Mr. Olympia. So I have a Flex Lewis Gaspari poster signed by him to me on my muscle wall here at my gym. So that's kind of cool, man. And Lee Priest, dude, he's definitely one of those original giant killers. So like you said, he's a little crazy, but definitely one of the best physiques of all time. So that kind of transitions into the second question, Justin. At what age did you start lifting weights, and then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
So I started lifting weights when I was 14. I was in 8th grade. I just turned 14, and my dad had this like weight set out in the garage, and I wanted to like learn how to start lifting weights. I remember the very first time I bench pressed, I was able to bench press my body weight, and I think it was like 145 pounds or something like that. So he taught me like how to do all of the basic movements, but he was a power lifter back in like the 80s and 90s. And so like he knew what he was doing, and he was kind of like my very first mentor. Then I really started like lifting like seriously with a strength coach at 15 when I was in high school, getting ready to play my first season of varsity football. So I was a freshman in high school. It was like the winter, spring months, and our high school hired this strength coach to train us at his private gym. It was like a sports specific gym. Like our booster club like went like all out and made a bunch of money to do this because it wasn't cheap. And they did that, and I stayed with him until my freshman year of college. And then when I like bumped up and got like a different strength coach as I was playing college football. So that was like, those are like really most of like the beginning memories for me. Like when it comes to lifting was like with that strength coach and with my football teammates. And we got really freaking strong. That was like a really cool time period. Like just like strongman stuff and like functional movements, but a lot of bench squatting and deadlifting for sure.
Very cool, man. So I kind of like to use that latter question just to transition into the backstory, your childhood. So talk about where you grew up, Justin. Talk about maybe some of the family dynamics, the sports you played. Paint that childhood picture for us up to about high school, and then we'll move on from there.
Okay. So I'm from upstate New York. So I always tell people I'm from the state of New York, not from New York City or Long Island. So I'm from Binghamton. That's the city that's closest to me, and then like Endwell, New York is technically my hometown. Um, I have an older sister, Megan. She's 3 years older than me, and that's it. Just like a really like kind of like we're a small family. Like my parents were like very working middle class. We never like needed of anything. So like, but like we weren't like, it wasn't like we were like super well off either. Very humble beginnings. My parents like worked really hard for what they had to, and like I remember my dad like travels probably like 6 months out of the year for work. So he was like my first real role model when it came to like work ethic, because you never heard him complain. And the shifts that he works suck. Like he gets up at like 4:30 in the morning to be at work by 5:30. Now, yeah, he gets to leave the office by 3 o'clock, but still, like that's a shit schedule. I don't care what anybody says. And so that's he was but he never complained about it either. And my mother has always worked as well. She wasn't just like a homemaker; she was a full-time employee. But we needed that. And so they were like really good role models. And I can't complain about my upbringing or my family life or anything like that. Like, my parents were at every football game. We traveled for my sister's cross country meets and basketball games. And like, we did stuff as a family. We did like family vacations every year. And like, so, they were humble enough, but at the same time, like they worked hard so that way we could have like some decent, really nice things, more than what they had. That's for sure. But yeah, so like my upbringing with them was like very traditional, matriarchal type of style. Like my dad was like, the main breadwinner and whatnot. And, but yeah, just like very, very traditional stuff. So no complaints as far as that goes.
So talk about, you mentioned football. So talk about some of the sports that you played, and was there anything else outside of sports that was kind of a major impact or influence in your life as you were growing up?
Really, it was just sports. So I played all of the main three. So I played football, baseball, and basketball. I started playing sports like really early. I think I was like 3 years old when I was doing like rec soccer and t-ball and whatnot. And I always played with the older kids because my sister was, a little bit older than me. And so they would just bring us at the same time, and I'd just play on their team sometimes, until like they had like enough kids my age to actually play with. But then as we got, progressed on, it was specifically football, baseball, and basketball. If you asked me at that time, like, which one's your favorite? It was whichever one I was playing at the time. So I didn't have like one like specialty or whatnot. The teams, like I grew up in like a weird time frame in our town because there was like a lot of really good athletes coming out of like that same school district. And like we weren't a big school district in upstate New York. There were like 600 kids in my graduating class. And so, but like nobody really moved out of the area. Nobody really moved into the area. Like we all stayed like at this like group of people for like basically from like 5th grade all the way through high school. And it was like you played sports with the same kids every single year. And like everybody got like super close. And I think that's why our teams were really good. And then going up through high school. So high school was then when I started to like kind of like specialize, and I just wanted to play football. I had aspirations of playing like Division I college football, and I knew that I wasn't going to play any Division I sports as a baseball or basketball player. And so, football was my shot. And, our teams were always really, really good. And basically what I started doing was like that year that I told you about, I started weightlifting. That was when I stopped playing the other sports, and it was football and then weightlifting the rest of the year. So like pretty early on, I like wanted to like just go like do my season, then off season, then off season. I didn't want to go from sport to sport to sport. Football was where all my passion was anyway by that point. So it just made sense for me. And then like going up through high school, like I can't complain about my sports for anything really, because like my senior year and my senior year and my junior year, we ran the table and went undefeated and won state championships. And so like we had, like I said, it was this like very weird time where a school that has 600 kids in it can have like so many athletes that are like super talented. I didn't play Division I college football. I played D3, but there were like 3 guys from my class that played D1. Then there were 4 guys from the next class after me that went D1. So like they had like, it was like a very weird time. It hasn't been quite the same since, but so that's pretty much like my high school story. And then I did go on to play college football for 2 years. And then after, so that was like right around the time that I learned about like Flex Lewis and bodybuilding and all that. And I stopped it was hard to recreate the same camaraderie that you have with your high school teammates that you've grown up with since, first grade. And then to like recreate that in 1 season or 2 seasons and in college is very difficult. And I kind of like lost a little bit of my love for playing football. I love watching it still, but like for playing it, I was like, I don't know this person that's even standing next to me. So it's like hard to like, go to war with that person because football is very much like that. It just wasn't the same for me. So I just said like, instead of going out there and taking a spot away from somebody else, I'm gonna go do something else. By that point too, I was starting to like love the off season more than the in season of football because I was getting, really strong, really progressed in the gym, both visual and, strength strength gains going up. So it was like kind of just a natural thing for me. And then it took one of my friends doing a men's physique show for me to go in support of him to then be like, okay, this is for me. Like, I need to be up there next year. So that year I stopped playing football. I transferred schools so that way I could commute from home. I ended up going to a better school. Actually, when I commuted from home, it was a much better school. And then, so saved myself a bunch of money. And then I was able to bodybuild because I could, I was living at home. I could buy my own groceries. I could cook all my own food. And that summer going into that freshman year that junior year at the new school, I prepped for my first bodybuilding show. And it was a disaster.
Okay, so before we get there, I'm going to interject. I want to take a couple steps back, and then we'll take a couple steps forward to all things bodybuilding. Now, in regards to football, what was it that really, like in those high school years, when you said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to just kind of play football. I'm going to lift weights. This is going to be my jam for the next few years." What was it specifically, Justin, about football that really pulled you in and made you kind of go all in with football as opposed to playing multiple sports once you got to high school?
It was definitely my best sport. So like I was the best at football out of the sports that I played. So that always plays a role in it. I think anytime you're good at something, the odds of liking it are much higher. And it's a lot easier to like something that you're good at. It's hard to like something you're bad at. And so that probably played a part of it. But our town and this little area and like our area of New York, football was kind of the sport, like that was the sport that all the schools like wanted to be like king of the hill with and like be the best football school in the area. And, we didn't have so baseball in upstate New York, it's snowing half the year. And so, but that, and basketball does have some pretty good athletes. Obviously the closer you get to New York City, the better they get. Lacrosse is really big in upstate New York, but like, honestly, in our area, like our lacrosse team was pretty good, but like it was still football, like it was still a football area. And so it was in large parts of like just competition. Like I love to compete. And then 2, it was the sport that I knew I was the most competitive in, and who doesn't love to win? So it was like, and we were so used to winning. It was like, I said, how we won 2 state championships in a row. They ended up winning 2 more after I graduated. So it was 4 in a row at one point. But coming up like through like modified sports and then freshman and JV and then varsity, like we never really lost games. It was like we were very used. I'll say this, I had more undefeated seasons than I had non-undefeated seasons, like from middle school to senior year of high school. So it's, it's like you get used to this level of like excellence and your teams are just really good and everyone knows your team is really good. Then it's also fun to be known as like, that's the running back for Maine Endwell. It's cool. You get like this little town, they come and film the games and you get interviewed after. And it's like, you think you're like a superstar because you're on like local Fox News or whatever, your local, Fox affiliate. And it's like, that's probably why, but, also too, like, I just loved it, man. Like, the game kind of turns off around you when you have your helmet on. Like you get a handoff and you see the crease and you hit it and then it just opens up right in front of you. There's like no other feeling like that. You can't hear anything. There's nobody can tell me that you can hear stuff, because you can't. I can't hear a word of what's going on when the ball has been snapped and it's in my hands. And it's also too, you're like tunnel vision too. It's like you just like it's amazing. Like it's an indescribable feeling. If you've never done it, you'll never be able to understand it. But there's a lot of things like that. And so that was what it was for me. I was like always chasing that same feeling, because that was like the whole point. It was like euphoria.
Very cool, man. And something else we have in common. I played D3 football as well. So I understand. I wasn't a running back. I was a linebacker, but I definitely understand some of the things that you've been unpacking about.
Where did you go?
Football. I'm from Iowa, so I played at a D3 school in Iowa. So
is it like Central Iowa, or that one?
It's called the college is called Central College, and
I know exactly what school that is. Isn't that the same one that Brett Wilkin played at?
Yeah.
I knew it. Wow.
Yeah. So I quit football after my freshman year at Central, and then I transferred to another school in South Dakota. And if I would have stayed at Central, I think Brett might be a grade or 2 grades beneath me. So if I would have stayed there, then obviously I would have played with Brett. But yeah, Central College in Pella, Iowa is where I went for my freshman year, and that's where Brett went, and I believe he graduated from there. So
yeah, he did. He ended up being like a D3 All-American at one point. He was really
good.
Probably.
I didn't follow stuff too much after that.
Yeah, I went to St. John Fisher College in Rochester, New York, and like they played like in the NCAA playoffs. They would typically, I think they made it to the Final Four once, but they'd usually get bounced in like the Elite Eight, and it was like either to like Wisconsin Whitewater, Mount Union, or like Mary Hardin Baylor. It's like the only 3 schools that have won like a D3 national championship in the last like 20 years. So it's always like coming up to the same people.
I love it, man. That's cool. So anyways, so when you were getting ready to graduate from high school, what were you thinking about studying in college? What did you end up studying? And kind of what were you thinking about, what you wanted to do once you were done with school, once you were kind of quote unquote, all grown up? What did you want to do, and how did that actually unfold once you went to college?
Yeah. So I knew I was going to be a business major. So I just started off as like a basic business administration, like a bunch of kids do. And then you were able to select a specialty. So at some point then I had mine be corporate finance. And I thought I was going to be like an investment banker and make all sorts of money. And that is not what happened at all. And I was really good in school. It's funny, I got better grades in college than I did in high school. And I think in high school it was because I was there to play football. I wasn't there to go to class. Obviously I wasn't playing hooky or whatnot, but it was very minimal effort got me, a 90 some average. And I was like, okay, well, what do I care then? I'm not chasing after that 100 for something that I don't care about. But in college, after I was like, okay, well, the D1 dream is dead because I'm playing Division III football. And so now it's like, okay, I probably need to start applying myself a little bit more. And I just kind of took the same work ethic. Like I actually started studying really like legitimately, making the flashcards, just doing like the traditional college stuff. And I started like churning out like 4.0 semesters, every semester at that first school. And, so I thought I was like doing really, really well. When I transferred schools, I had like a 3.97 GPA. It was like I had one class that I got an A- in the whole time that I was there, and that was it. And I went to my new school, and whoa, way harder. I was a very average student there compared to all the other kids. Like it was remarkable. It was like I went from being like a 4.0 student to then like struggling to keep like a 3.4 GPA. And I was like, holy shit, why is this so freaking hard? Now granted, I eventually was able to figure it out, and I did graduate with Greek honors, but it was like way harder. Like it was like remarkable. And the amount of effort I put into that, like from a studious standpoint, probably the most effort I put into anything studying wise, like that was remarkable. It was just because it was a lot of high level math that was just not my area of expertise. like once we got really like past basic calculus, like my mind just like was like, yo, I don't know how to do derivatives and stuff. It just wasn't working. And so, I white knuckled my way through it and I got through it, but that was really challenging for me.
So then what did you end up graduating with in terms of your degree? And then what did your career kind of look like post-college?
So I was personal training and managing a gym while I was in school. So again, at this point, I'm already full-fledged into bodybuilding, like about almost 2 years into bodybuilding now. I did graduate with a business administration degree with a concentration in corporate finance. And then my first like real job out of college was with Citi. So like Citibank, the parent company Citigroup. And I went to their North American headquarters in Buffalo and worked for them as a financial analyst. And I had no clue what I was doing. And it was like, got very little guidance, like had no one really helping me or teaching me. And like, that's like, I'm not just like an audible learner. Like you can't just like tell it to me. Like I need to be able to see it. And so I just like really struggled there. And before I knew it, I was like, I'm done. Like I can't, this isn't it for me. Sharing a cubicle with another person with, probably another 1,000 people on the one floor. I was like, no, this isn't it. And so I knew that it wasn't making me happy. If anything, it actually was making me like one of the most stressed out I ever was, because I didn't know how to do my job. I didn't even really know what was being asked of me. And then I just like thought every day I was going to be walking in on a Friday and have them be like, hey, Justin, come on into our office and then get let go. So, so I ended up going back to like the fitness industry and started managing some supplement shops for the time being before, parlaying into other avenues work-wise. But yeah, that first job out of college was like not fun.
So let's transition then into bodybuilding. So you kind of brought us up to you went and saw a friend compete in a men's physique competition, and you're like, hey, this is what I want to do. And then we kind of left off where you did your first show and you said it was a disaster. So why don't you talk about that first show? Why was it a disaster? Maybe what are some of the things that you did learn from that first show? And then just unpack that competition history, if you don't mind, Justin. Okay.
Yeah. So it was the fall of 2015 in October when I did my first show, and I had started prepping like back in May. So it was like already a really long prep. And the reason why was because I moved my show date back twice because I could not stop cheating on my diet. I didn't know how to stop. Like it was as soon as the floodgates opened, it was just, they weren't going back down. And so up to this point though, I'm a college football player and my goal was to simply keep as much weight on me as I possibly could. So I'm used to eating food at the dining hall and having whatever I can get my hands on calories wise, Greek yogurt with granola, cereal, eggs, if there's bagels or donuts or whatnot, I'm grabbing some. Like it was just, just fuel. And having to then like actually, this is the very first time I've ever dieted or tracked a calorie or weighed out any type of food in my entire life. And I went like full steam at it. So I don't know why I thought that was like a good idea, but I did. And I actually ended up looking really good at that show. Like I had striated glutes and like my hamstrings were in, and I won my class in the open, and I also won the novice overall. So like I won't say I did bad. And the look was pretty good and conditioned for a first time competitor. The reason it was a disaster was because I ended up having to do like an hour and a half of cardio, like for like 8 weeks every single day, because I couldn't stop cheating on my diet. So that was why it was a disaster. And that was still to this date, the hardest prep that I've ever done because I messed around.
So did you prep yourself for that first competition?
No, I've never prepped myself for a show. I had a local coach helping me. So then after the first show, I kind of like parted ways with the local coach, and then, was doing an off season. Didn't really know what I was doing either still. So I was just eating anything I could, got pretty fat. And then it was like only like 6 months after, like it was like, I competed in October, and then I got pretty fat by April, which is my birthday. Because I remember specifically, it was like that my birthday was my first day of prep. And I was like, at that point I had hired Chris Tuttle, and he ran me through my next several shows. So it would have been 2016 when I was prepping for the Northeast Summer Classic. That was a Bev Francis show in White Plains, New York, and was a middleweight again. And I won that class and then lost the overall. And then I like met some like really cool people backstage. One of them is still like one of my good friends to this day. I always like meet and make a bunch of friends at the bodybuilding shows. I love it. That's like the best thing about bodybuilding to me is backstage and like meeting people. I love it. I'm the chatty ass motherfucker backstage that like doesn't shut up because I just want to say hi and meet people. But that's because it's like game day. It's like, that's fun. And so that's me. If you ever see me backstage, I'm going to probably say hello to you. So then after that, I did North Americans later that year. So by my third bodybuilding show was North Americans. And the reason why I did that was because those first two shows had reasonable competition and I won pretty handily. And I was like, well, I want to go against like some good guys. I wanted to just see better competition. I knew I wasn't going to win a pro card because at the time, North Americans only gives pro cards out to the top 3 in the overall. And I was like, okay, well, that's not going to be me, it's, and so, I was a middleweight at my regional qualifier, but then I thought we were going to do welterweights, but then my weight kept falling and I ended up making lightweights. And I came in second at North Americans there. And so that was like my first time actually losing like a class, but it was also like very eye-opening because like the guys that I saw backstage, I was like, holy shit, like these guys are huge. And I still think that sometimes going backstage and seeing some of these like heavyweights and super heavies, I'm like, damn, these guys are freaking huge. And so, but that was, like really Chris and I's like main prep that year because he kind of took over a prep like about halfway for the first show. And then he did this one all the way in himself. Then after that, I took a long time off. So that would have been 2016. So I took like almost 2 years off. So I took the rest of 2016 off. And then I didn't prep for a show until November of 2017. So I did give myself like a full year to grow. Now I was a middleweight again. And you'll hear that again. I was middleweight for a long time. And I did Eastern USA's that year. And I picked that show because it was, again, another really competitive show. Well, I didn't do the best. I came in third and, my look was good. My conditioning was arguably the best it was. I lost a lot of muscle in that prep for whatever reason. I think that was also the time that I moved to Buffalo and took my first job with City. So I think it was like the stress from work, the stress from the move, and then also like a relationship stress. It was like everything was like working against me. I think that was like my first like, real experience with like the negative effects that like cortisol plays on your physique. Because I remember I ate significantly less that prep to get in shape. I had to do considerably more cardio to get in shape. And my body was like really stubborn that year. Now, luckily it's never done that since, but that was like a weird year. And so it wasn't the best look for me by any means. So then after that, I took, another longer off season and, so took all of 2018 off. And then I started prep in like April of 2019 for USA's. And so I had to do a qualifier before that. So in 2019, at this point, I had moved to Georgia. So I'm living in Georgia at this point. And I did the NPC Georgia State Championships. And so, they just call it the Georgia. And so I ended up winning the overall at that show. I weighed in as a light heavyweight at 182 pounds. And so really I'm a glorified middleweight. And so I won that show, then went on to USA's 2 weeks later, and came in third as a middleweight at USA's. So happy with the placing. I thought I could have been higher had I done things differently with our peak. We definitely didn't hit it. It was too flat. Nothing was popping. Because then the next morning after, like once I was able to fill out just a little bit, because I had to diet pretty hard to get down to 176 and make weight. Plus we basically didn't eat really much before going into weigh-ins, and I had almost no water on me that whole day. And we weighed in around like 4 p.m. So we just didn't feel hard enough for the morning show. But that was also a time period where in like December, January 2019 was when I met Matt Jansen at a gym in Georgia. I had met him before, and so he knew who I was. But like I bumped into him literally, and I was like, what the heck? What are you doing here? And so I didn't realize that he had moved, because I knew Matt to live in Tennessee. So he had moved to Gainesville, Georgia, and that's the gym that I was training. I was in Gainesville, Georgia. It was Elevation Fitness. And later that day, I got a DM, and it was like, hey man, like, let me know if you ever want to get some sessions in, since I'm here now, and here's my split. So he sent me a split, and I just tailored mine because I was like, I'm not just going to take this opportunity if I can train with Matt Jansen for sure. So we started training together, and then 4 months of training went really, really well. And then I told him, I was like, hey, I'm gonna prep for USA's. You're still good to train with me. And if we've got to tailor some things, then he was, of course, yeah, absolutely, buddy. So so he helped me all the way through, trained with me every day and until USA's, and that was that was a huge help. We grew, came really close and developed like a really good relationship and friendship. And I remember he was checking on me while I was in USA's, just texting me, say, hey, how do you feel, and stuff like that. So after USA's was when, and I had already known who Matt Jansen was for a long time. I knew how successful he was. I asked Matt, right after that, I said, I need you to take over from now on. And so that was when Chris and I parted ways. We did so amicably. He's still a great friend of mine. He's, a mentor to me. We still shoot the breeze, and I ask him a bunch of questions still to this day. And he's one of the nicest guys. So, but, so we parted ways the right way. And then I got started with Matt. And then that was really when my physique started to make faster changes. And it wasn't for any different protocol or any special food or anything. It was honestly for really the first time having like a really consistent high level training partner that was taking me to the next level in the gym. And we did things a little bit differently. We did things a little bit smarter in some ways. We did things a little bit more aggressive in others. And so, but we all in a whole, it was super similar. And I made more progress from like July of 2019, which is when USA's was, till my current physique right now. And I'm a week out from, a qualifier right now. And then I'll be doing NPC nationals, later on this year as a light heavyweight. And I'm very confident in what I'm going to be bringing to nationals. And so the changes though that I've made since USA's to then is like really profound. And that's just over 2 years. So, because we're in November right now of 2021, and that was July of 2019. And so we did do a diet in 2020 during COVID before the shows got moved. So that was like a weird year. We did start dieting, and Matt was like, I told him, I said, I want to do USA's. I want to do USA's, and I need like some redemption. I was like, all right, let's do it. So we started prepping for it. I didn't have to do a qualifier because I was already, qualified from USA's the previous year. And he just kept telling me, man, it was like, if we can get you into middles, there's no way you're not winning. If we can get you there, it's going to be about your body weight. And I remember we stopped the diet when I hit like 190 pounds. I think the lightest I got really was like 189 and change. And that was when we stopped. I was probably about like anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks out condition at that point. We had decided to keep dieting at like the 10-week out mark when the USA got moved. And so I was like, well, hey buddy, I'm not prepping the whole year. Like, it's just not going to happen. I'd rather start growing. And so he's like, well, let's just keep going. Like, let's get you lean so that way you can get a good rebound. And then, we'll continue on from there. And so that's exactly what we did. It was such an easy prep. I remember like I was with, my fiance at the time, which we're not together anymore, but she used to say like, how do you get full days off plan to just eat whatever? Because like Matt, like twice a week for like most of that diet was telling me like on Wednesdays and Saturdays, like just eat whatever you want the whole day. And my weight would barely move, and I would eat like anything. And then he'd be like, okay, just go back to your baseline. And a couple days later, I'd be 2 pounds lighter, and I'd check in with him, and he'd be like, all right, do it again. There's like a breeze, but also with no show in mind and no stress of that. It was like we were able to like just do things a little bit differently and like take the little bit of pressure off the gas, and then it made so much. We made so much faster progress. So that was an interesting prep, and then the rebound from that was really good, like really, really good. And I think that's probably where honestly most of the improvements that I've made from then until now really happened. As I started like really pushing my body weight up and hitting like the 225 range consistently was when stuff did start to kind of stick a bit more. And that's that final push that I made, because I was kind of hovering around 215 before I eventually just said like, okay, I'm just going to dirty bulk my face off and like eat anything I can get my hands on. And I did, and it got sloppy, but it came off quick. And like right now, I mean, I'm in the best shape of my life at this point, and it didn't change my structure or make my waist wide. So I think we did okay. So, but I'll be over 20. I'll be like 20 pounds heavier than I was at USA's in 2 years. So, average that out, a little less than 20 pounds. So it's probably going to be anywhere from like about on 9 pounds per year average. I'd say I'll take that every year. I'm not the type of person that's going to have like a 20-pound off season. It would have happened by now if it was going to happen.
No, that sounds legit to me, Justin. Now, we're going to get into some other conversation here in a moment, but in terms of bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding, what is your mindset for the future and kind of what your long-term goal or vision is for being a competitive bodybuilder?
Okay. So I mean, obviously like my immediate goal is to win my pro card in 5 weeks. If that doesn't happen, it's going to be a quick off-season turnaround, and I'm going to, try and, make a really good rebound and fill out the rest of my frame to be at the absolute top of the weight class for light heavies, and then go at it again. My goal when I originally started bodybuilding, when I started looking at physiques, I loved how the light heavies looked. Because when I started, the light heavies were still like shorter guys, like 5'5", 5'6", and they were, 198 pounds. Like that's a big guy. And so that's how I wanted to look. I thought that was capable with my physique and with my genetics, because I didn't think I could weigh 225 on stage and be a heavyweight, especially at my height. And so my goal, both short-term and long-term, has been, I want to win my pro card as a light heavyweight. And specifically, I either wanted to win USA's or win nationals, win my class. Now, if I'm able to win it overall, then holy crap, that's like icing on the cake, but the class win in the pro card was really what I wanted. Like long-term wise, I wanted to be a 212 pro this whole time. And so like, that's been the level that I thought I could get to, and that I still think I can get to. And that that would be like where my cap would be. But that's okay. And I like the 212 division a lot. Again, I resonate with them a little bit more. They're my size, in the sense of they're my height. They're still a lot bigger, but granted, the open bodybuilders are still always the main attraction to me. I love watching it. I watch and stream a lot of bodybuilding shows every year. And so, but like long-term wise has been to be a 212 pro. And then from there, who knows, man, like you don't even know how competitive you can be on that type of stage until I guess you really get there. If I was ever able to grace the Olympia stage and be on there one time, I would have fulfilled so much more in my bodybuilding career from a competitive standpoint than I ever thought would be possible. So, but one of my recent goals too has been like, I wanted to be able to be two things. I wanted to be a really high level coach that's also a really high level athlete, because there's not a lot of those guys out there currently. And I mean, like when I say high level athlete, I mean like still actively competing. John Jewett does it really well. Chris Tuttle was doing it really well just until he, stopped competing. I think he's done competing. I'm not sure. I'm sure I'm missing some others. Those are just the two that come to mind for me, because they're people I've spoken to. Obviously Matt Jansen was a high level bodybuilder, came in coming third at USA's back in 2018. And so that's just like something that I really want to be able to do. And when I say a high level coach too, I mean, a large clientele that all do really well. I don't need necessarily, I'm not talking necessarily like Olympia winners and stuff like that, but just being able to like consistently put out tremendous results. It's not about like having all these genetically blessed athletes either, because I can say this without a shadow of a doubt, with the people on my roster, I might be have like one or two people that like truly have like next level genetics, and it's a matter of if they can, unleash it. But taking somebody who's like looked like an average Joe, and then their final pictures where they're on stage and they look like they belong, and more than just belong, they're like absolutely peeled. That's tremendous to me. And the gratitude that I get from that, as well as the gratitude that I get when I see how happy they are on stage and how happy they are after, and they're just so grateful that they did this. That's my why. People ask like, what's your why? Like that's mine. So that's why I still do this. And I compete, because I love competing, but also because I like setting an example for my athletes. That's the best way I can do it. I'm in the trenches here with you. So that's why I took the leap and became a full-time bodybuilding coach. So I not only can invest more time in myself, but I can also invest more time in my athletes. And through that is going to be what allows me to get to that next level with both coaching and with my own personal bodybuilding.
100%. So let's talk about that. Going from, college, corporate job, and then when did the coaching start for you? And then let's just talk about the evolution and the metamorphosis of your coaching business to the point where, like you just said, just recently, I believe before we turned on the mic, you said you're like, I'm going all in with my coaching, and this is what I'm going to do. So let's talk about the beginning and just that evolution to where you're at now, full-time bodybuilding coach.
Yeah. So I started taking clients in 2017. And I was just like helping out people like at the gym. Like I only knew at that point like what I had learned from my coaches. Now, luckily enough, like Tuttle is probably one of the best like coaches to learn from as a beginner. It's just like does a really good job of like just like teaching. And so I used to ask him a ton of questions. So I was like that annoying client that was like always wanted to know like why we were doing something. But I always was like very straightforward. I'm not challenging you. I'm just trying to learn. So I was just helping people out, like trying to like, most of them were honestly just like people trying to lose weight. At the time, like I mentioned before, I was personal training. And so I was helping some of my clients that was personal training with their, macros and whatnot, just like doing basic stuff. And then I had one gentleman ask me if I would help him for a show coming up. And I said, I don't know a lot about like a lot of this stuff, but I'll gladly give it a go. I knew enough, and I knew enough to be able to like feel like I could help him. Because if it wasn't, he was just going to do it on his own. And he looked good. And so that was like, those were the first several people that I was helping, and I wasn't, charging anybody any money. They were like my guinea pig to learn things and learn how to do refeeds properly and when to do them. And just a lot of just like a lot of the trials and tribulations that come with coaching is like, that was those first years, beginning of years where it's like, it's rough. It's just rough. And like a lot of people start off, thinking they know more than they do. And, it was just a learning experience for me. And then, from there, I've always offered it, as things have progressed through the years. I've slowly picked up more and more people. Believe it or not, I actually still have a handful of people from like those original, like 2017, 2018 years. And those are the type of people that you'll always have, like no matter what. Now, luckily for them, my service has gotten significantly better since then. I know a hell of a lot more, and I've done a lot more reading, as well as, practice, doing the things that I believe in practice. So I joined the Camp Jansen coaching team in November of 2020. So that was as a result of obviously like 2 years of being Matt Jansen's training partner, and then us talking shop quite a bit. And I used to pass on a lot of my thoughts to him about, hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing, either with myself in my own bodybuilding or with, an athlete or two that I was prepping. And a lot of times we had a pretty similar mindset. Now there were times when, I would think one thing and he would correct me, or if I would ask him questions, I would learn something very quickly. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I was having a common misconception then. So I learned something. And I think through that was, I displayed enough knowledge and enough passion to learn and care for people that he was like, I'd love for you to be on the team. And, you know, we had been talking about it for months, and he, you know, was able to finally, you know, get all the things set up for me. So it was just a year ago. It's actually in 10 days. It'll be my 1-year anniversary with Camp Jansen's coaching team. And it's been like a crazy opportunity because, you know, I have a lot of inquiries coming that are, for me, lucky because they're, you know, using part of the Camp Jansen name. You know, they attribute a lot of our success to Matt, and a lot of Matt's success, you know, gets, you know, trickled down. And so it's like, well, if he's a coach for him, Matt does a great job, then it's then it actually is true, and we like it that way based off of who we've hired. You know, there's Matt Berzicott, there's Nick Gloff, Nadia Samanowitz was on the team at one point. You know, and then myself, and all four of us have done very well this year with our athletes. And so, as that happens, and you know, Matt helps, you know, build our clientele, and also helps build our channels with a followership to be able to be, you know, like a bigger voice and have like more people take notice of us. You know, all of us have seen a ton of increases in our rosters. And like mine specifically has like really grown very quickly since taking the leap of leaving my 9-to-5 and going full-time with my coaching. And it was definitely a scary leap at the time because, you know, I was right on the border of like, okay, do I think this is a good idea? Do I not think this is a good idea? Am I going to be able to like pay all my bills and whatnot? And so, but it worked out. You know, karma was on my side. God was looking out for me. And a ton of inquiries came in, a ton of new signups came in, and a lot of these people are like really seeing tremendous progress, like really quickly and right away. This year, I've put more people on stage than I had the previous 3 years combined. So like by the end of this year, I'll have put like 30 athletes on stage, which has been a huge deal for me. Next year, I'm hoping to do 50 athletes on stage, if not more. So I already have like goals for next year of how many athletes I know I can take on. I also know what my cap is going to be once I eventually hit it and let myself get acclimated to a certain level of work. I'm very used to like in my 9-to-5s, like basically doing like a 9 to 6 shift, like, but typically usually like 6 days a week, you know, so I'm used to working 55, 60-hour weeks. And now, you know, I don't have that. So I'm able to use more time to every individual athlete, but then also towards my own bodybuilding. Now I know I can take on more, and I know I have the capacity for more, but I've been preaching this to all of my people don't worry, I'm not going to take on more business than I can handle. And because it's not about money for me. Like I didn't get into coaching to be to get rich. This is like one of the few things that actually makes me happy. And so, before we turned the camera on, I told you that I wanted to kind of talk about stuff like that. And so like, for me, happiness has always been like a really fleeting emotion. Like it's always been one that I've like really struggled with. And it's been a long time before I could really tell somebody like, yeah, I'm truly happy with my life as well as within myself as a person. And I think being happy with myself as a person has been what's caused me to not be happy in my life. I've had several careers since I left city. I was sold cars for 3 years and was a sales manager for another half a year, and 2.5, and then another half a year for 3 years. And boy, that was miserable. And now we did really, really well. I made a bunch of money. It was, probably the most money I've ever made. But it definitely didn't make me any happier. I worked typically 6 days a week. I technically got, 2 days off, but, we were usually guilted into coming in. And anyways, that was miserable. And then I worked at a supplement manufacturer, and I was actually doing really well there. And then that was when my engagement broke off, and I ended up leaving Georgia. I came down here to Florida to work for Revive and Raw. So I was, working for Matt now twice over, working for him and Dom. And then, I wasn't really super happy, and it wasn't had anything to do with those companies. I was dealing with a lot of like personal demons, and I couldn't feel happiness like ever. And so I said, I need to focus on this. I need to work on myself. I need time to just like be alone. And that was also then at the same time that I started seeking counsel. And so since then I've been going to therapy very regularly, and it's been like a huge help. being able to pull me out of this, like, just like really bad state of depression. I was always anxious. I thought very regularly, like, man, like if I just disappeared, like all of this like would go away. And so, it was, not the easiest time in my life by any means, but what has really catapulted it in the opposite direction was following my heart and doing something that I love doing, which was helping people and by coaching people. Not everybody is a competitive athlete that I have too. Like my lifestyle athletes give me tons of joy and gratitude because I help them. My goal is I'm trying to add years to the end of their life. I have a gentleman that's down 45 pounds. He was 330 pounds. He's now about to be in the 290s, 285, 290. And so like he's added years to his life by doing that. He looks different. He's down like 6 inches off his waist. And so it's like, and you can't tell me that his heart's not healthy or not carrying around another 45 pounds. We've done so the right way, with just cleaning up his food, getting a lot more fruits and vegetables in, and being active, working out and doing some cardio. And that stuff like makes a huge difference to me. Not only that, because I see how happy they are. They're like, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much. And I'm like, this is my job here. I'm just doing my job. But they're so appreciative that it's hard not to feel good when somebody thanks you for something. So like this is what I feel like I was 100% made to do. I have other career goals as well. At some point I'd love to open my own gym and then, just have my own office in my gym where I can take my clients. I would love to get back into like personal training a little bit, not for the need for it, but just because I enjoy doing it, And so that would be like my perfect scenario would be have my own gym, train a couple people out of the gym, but then also just be able to do my online coaching. And then I'm happy as I can. I'm happy as I can honestly be. So coming from humble beginnings, you don't have like a taste for like those like super finer things in life. So it's not something you crave or you lust for, so my goal is to have a little bit more and do a little bit better than my parents. And while also hopefully raising a family and being able to like instill those same values in them because I love kids. So that's like that kind of brings me up to like currently right now with like where I've been as far as like, my careers, and then also like my mental health, like coming up along the ride, because it has always been a roller coaster ride for me emotionally. And, with my mental health since pretty much high school. So that was like, and I'm 27, I graduated high school in 2013. So it's like, 4 years since high school, really, or no, more than that. Sorry, 2013, I graduated high school, excuse me. It's been 8 years. So, it's just like one of those things where you're like, feel like I'm finally doing the right stuff and I've got it figured out a little bit now at 27. I don't have it all figured out, but I have it at least figured out a little bit to the point where I can be doing better. So that's been like a huge like weight off my shoulders.
Beautiful. Now, a couple things from what you just shared, Justin. First of all, what was really the push that made you step out of, the corporate world and doing these different jobs and really like, all right, I'm going to go full time as a coach? Because you said, and I want to touch on some of the mental health stuff here as well. But what was the thing that really pushed you over the edge to go full-time coaching? Because you said there was that anxiety, there's that kind of mental battle back and forth, which I think that's natural for us human beings, right? But what was the final push? What gave you that push to go all in? And then I want you to take a step back and share a little bit more about some of these mental health struggles. You mentioned depression. You said this is kind of something that's been going on since high school or right after high school. What was kind of the cause of some of this mental health stuff, starting at the end of high school and the early part of college up to this point?
Yeah. So the story of like how I left Revive is actually kind of funny now. Like it wasn't funny at the time. But now looking back on it, it is, because like we all can laugh about it and we've all made amends. So there's dogs that come to the office that we have. Revive is a known place that allows dogs. And I was 2 weeks out from my show, or it was more than 2 weeks out. It was a couple weeks out from the show because it was a few weeks ago. And the dog ate my lunch. Like he grabbed it off my desk and played tug of war with him on, with Tupperware in his mouth for like 10 minutes before he bit right through it. And then all of the chicken and rice just fell out on the floor. And I threw the Tupperware down and I said, F this, I'm out of here. So like, that was it. Like there's not really like a real pretty and sexy story. I did make amends with Matt and Dom saying, hey, I'm really sorry that I had to like walk out, but like, I'm just not okay. And so that was like, that was obviously just the straw that broke the camel's back. And it was just a very small straw. The dog that did it, I love Herc. He's a great dog. And so, but anyway, but the point being is that it was, I was already really struggling, mentally. So kind of just parlaying it back into what your second question was. So I was engaged for over a year, and we were together unofficially for basically like 3 years. At least, so our relationship ended, and it was, like really, that was like hard on me. Now it didn't come out of the blue, and it was a mutual parting ways. Things weren't working. But I've just struggled with it, really having a hard time. Like, what did I do wrong? You know what I mean? Like, why didn't it work? Am I ever going to be able to do this again? Like, I don't want to put myself through this pain again. And, like even going back to like high school, I don't necessarily know exactly why I felt like that in certain aspects, but I've always kind of like experienced these like really low lows that can sometimes be followed by like really high highs. And, there's not like I don't have like I don't have like a bipolar disorder or anything like that, but it's just like stuff that I've like struggled with, always usually putting a lot of pressure on myself. And so like self-inflicted stress would typically like drive me down. I used to be like a really superly overly optimistic guy and like really like fun to be around. And like, as I've gotten older, because I hadn't been happy like within myself, and I wasn't like super happy with where I was career wise either, because I had put too much value into like what other people would think of me. So I thought I needed to have like these fancy things. I needed to have this big, this nice job with a fancy title. And like, by 25, I needed to have my first house purchased already and whatnot. And that's just not the case at all. And so, by being able to like take a step back just recently and being like, you know what, like, I don't care anymore what other people are thinking, that I'm just going to focus on me and being happy, has made like a huge change. Even within my relationship, I've struggled, with like being happy within myself. So it's hard to pour from an empty cup for years on end. And that was what I was trying to do. And I couldn't white knuckle my way through it anymore. I thought like you had to be like, tough it out, be a man, blah, 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 to very traditional, like societal standards. And, which is like the dumbest thing ever. And now I realize that, because when I started seeking counsel, wow, like what a breath of fresh air that's been. And so that's been like a huge change for me. And it's like, I won't go into too much detail as far as like all of the things that cause like the times of depression and anxiety, but a lot of them are things that like most people go through. Just some people experience them a little bit differently than others. Some people handle them differently than others. There are some that are very resilient and they don't break. And then there's others, that, break a little bit easier. So it's kind of like one of those things where it's stuff that needs to be talked about. And that's why I'm like not embarrassed to talk about it, because there's enough people that experience it. And there's enough of my role models that have, spoken up about it too. Other bodybuilders that do podcasts talked about their issues with it. And like, that makes me like them more, not look at them any less because of, oh, you mean you feel like normal human emotion? Wow. How dare you? No, it's like, that's good. We want people like that. We want people to open up. That's the beauty of social media and YouTube and everything. You get to know all these people like as if they're your friends and you've never even met them, but you are able to connect with them. And so it's like you're indirectly communicating and connecting with this person that you've never actually met. And so, but it allows for like stronger relationships when you eventually do meet them. So for anybody out there, like, a message that I would say is like, what's helped me, talking about it has really helped. and not trying to like white knuckle your way through it. Seek counsel, or find, your role model or somebody that you can like look up to, or that that you do look up to, that you value their opinion. Talk to them about it like every once in a week, once in a while, once a week or something like that. Having a support system is truly what you need, because you can't get through it alone, or else you'll do the same thing I did, and you'll spin your wheels for years. So that's the best message I can give to anybody if they ever struggle with anything like that. Like, talk to people; it will help you.
Do you have, Justin, like a quote or a mantra or a word or anything like that that kind of is something that you hold on to as you go through each day?
I not necessarily. I would say the closest thing that I have to that would be one of the tattoos that I have on my forearm. It's Philippians 4:13, and it's, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so, so I grew up Roman Catholic, and then just kind of went towards like just the traditional Christianity route, like they have, Southern Christianity, similar to Southern Baptist, and really got into it. Again, I got away from the church for a while because I was like forced to do it when I was like younger. And then I wanted to do it as I got older, because, I've always wanted to believe in something, greater than me. And I got baptized, this year, and that was like a big step. And so, so I am religious. So I do, I do look to Christ and God for leadership and for guidance. And I know that he's going to take care of me. And that was also like something that I did heavily when I was, making the switch to, said, okay, I need to focus on myself. Full-time coaching is what I'm doing. I prayed a lot, and I was like, I just really hope that I didn't make the wrong decision. I really hope he's going to, help me in this time. And he answered all of my prayers and then some. I couldn't have asked for, a better response, this fast. And so, and it's still coming in. There's still new client plans that need to be sent out. And so it's just, so I know he's looking out for me. So that would probably be the biggest thing for me is, and that's something I'll recite to myself every once in a while is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Love that, man. I don't get into this very much on the podcast, but, faith is something that's, very, very important in my life too. And something, a quote that I hold on to all the time is where God guides, God provides.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of exactly what you're talking about, right? Like,
yeah,
God is going to challenge us, and he's going to ask us to step out by faith and trust him. And I guarantee it, because I've had a lot of different faith experiences in my life where God guides, God provides 100%. Yeah. And he will never fail us in that. So that's definitely cool. That's very refreshing, Justin. Now, we've already been going for close to an hour, so we are going to start wrapping things up. But I do want to ask you, you've mentioned your relationship with Matt, and I know you've learned a lot from him. But if there was like one thing that you've kind of learned from him that really stands out, whether that's personally, coaching wise, bodybuilding wise, however you want to take this question, if there's kind of one thing that Matt has taught you, what is that one thing?
God, he's taught me a lot, and him and Dom have taught me a lot. So I'm really, really close with Dom as well. So boiling it down to one thing is hard, but from a coaching side of things, because that is our business, is I would say that, the biggest thing that Matt has taught me has been to treat them as if like they're a part of your family. You know what I mean? Like, care for them. And that's a good coach, regardless of, how smart they are, or, the big words that they can use and whatnot, because that's not me, and that's not Matt either. We're definitely a keep it simple, stupid type of people. Simplify until the day you die. So just being there and because at the end of the day, like, your job is to be as good at customer service as you possibly can, while also still providing like an excellent coaching service. But there's a lot of really good coaches that aren't good at that. They're not good at customer service, or they're not good at, communicating and talking to their people. Their level of care isn't at the same level as their expertise and their knowledge. So while, yes, they can still get people really, really good results, there are some that need more than that. You know what I mean? So there are some that need more than, like, okay, here's your plan for the week. You look good. Here's the changes we're making. And then go ahead and execute. Like, some need more than that. Some need some more positive reassurance, reinforcement. They need, to not necessarily have their hand held, but everyone reacts a bit differently. Caring for them to the best of your ability allows you to connect with more people. And at the end of the day, like, my goal is to simply be as good of a person as I can be. And so that's been one of the biggest things from a coaching side of things, outside of like teaching us actual, like not like specific knowledge-based things with coaching. Cause yeah, like there's tons of that. And obviously I could have gone some route with that, but none of those are like any more one important than the other. But this is super important, because if you want to be a good coach and you want to make this to be your livelihood because it's something you're passionate about, I mean, who wouldn't want their passion to also be their livelihood? If you want that to happen, you need to care about them, and you need to make sure that they know you care about them. So that's probably been like one of the biggest things, because he talks about it pretty regularly. So, and Matt, if he's going to bring something up on a regular basis, it's because he wants you to do it, and it's because it's important to him. So that would be probably the biggest thing that, I've really changed, and it's made a huge difference. And it took zero effort, because I already was doing a lot of it. I just took it up a level.
So let's talk a little bit about like personal growth, because you've kind of talked about it already, but I want to kind of take it to another level. Our professional lives are only going to go as far as our personal lives, right? If we are falling short in our personal lives, our professional lives are never going to be what they could be. So in terms of personal growth, Justin, like what is an area, what are some of those areas outside of the mental health side of things that you are working on, or you need to pay more attention to? Because you kind of said it like, hey, like, you've got the online coaching now, you've got more freedom, you've got more time to take care of yourself. Self-care is healthcare. So what are some of those areas that you are trying to focus more on now personally, that you have a little bit more time to do so?
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of said it right there with, being able to have like more time for myself has also just been allowing me to take a step back from my work so much, because for a long time I had no time management skills as far as balance goes. I only knew to like give one thing 100%, and that was it. So for a long time it was my career. And so, when I sold cars, when I was doing the supplement thing, it was like, that was me. Like I was an employee, and I was a W-2, and that's how I made my living. And, I clocked a lot of hours, and I always wanted to be the first one in the building, the last one out, and, make an impact, but also have upper level management notice me and whatnot. Like, it was all for a reason. And I stopped then prioritizing myself by being able to do any of the things that I wanted to do. I mean, I missed a ton of workouts, unfortunately, because of, my career. So I wasn't able to like always prioritize myself. I prioritized, my partner over a lot of, my self-care as well, because of not wanting to be a selfish partner. I wanted to make sure that they always felt cared for, and that I made time for them and whatnot. And I still would do the same thing. That's the thing. It's like, I'm trying to be as selfless as possible. Luckily now I'm in a position where I can do that. I can still give my all to my work, and there's still hours in the day left over for me to have time to do some self-care. Now, some days there's still less than others. Some days, I have an hour of self-care versus 5 hours. You know what I mean? It just depends on the day, but that's the beauty of it. And that's also the beauty of what I'm doing now that makes me excited to get up every morning and like get back to work, because no 2 days are the same. All different people check in on different days. It's like that. It's so much more fun for me. It has made me so much happier. And at right now too, like, another thing that I've been trying to personally do is I'm only really doing things at the moment that like make me happy, outside of like your typical like adult like responsibilities, obviously, but if there's like, I'm like, man, I really don't like doing this, or if I'm like, I really don't want to be here, I'm just going to excuse myself and probably head out. My social media tends to run out pretty quick these days. But that's okay. And that's something that, is working well for me to, still surround myself with people for at least a little bit of every day, do some communicating with people every single day. Human, like face-to-face human interaction every day, do some form of exercise every single day. And, obviously I'm in prep. So like my food is very, very tightly watched, but, just all, obviously that part makes a big change too. So those are some positive things that have changed. And I've also started reading, so I've never been a big reader. I used to read like a lot of like bodybuilding books like back in the day. And so, but these are more like Rich Dad Poor Dad and like other like self-success books. So like how to become a better person, how to increase your business, how to be, how to do, they're like not how-to books, but you know what I'm talking about, and that genre. And so that's something that I've been, incorporating more, and it's going real well. I'm enjoying it. I'm learning a lot out of it too. So, cause like learning is something that I really enjoy. So those are all things that, I've started doing, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon because there would be no reason for me to. I have all the time in the world now to do it.
Excellent, man. I got one book recommendation because my reading kind of goes in ebbs and flows, and I've really been intentional lately to really start reading, because that's how you learn. You listen, you read, you apply. That's how growth happens. But so Tim Grover, the book Winning. Okay.
I know this book. Yeah.
Okay. Cause I actually
I haven't read it, but I know the book.
Yeah. I sent a DM to Matt Jansen about it, saying, hey, have you read this book? He's like, no, I haven't. I said, I highly recommend it. And then all of a sudden I saw Nick Walker posted on his stories. And so I don't know if that was the impetus to get that book going around, but it's, get your hands on it, because it's a life-changing, game-changing book. Tim Grover is Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade's personal trainer, among thousands of other elite athletes. But it's just a very rich book. It's not like one of those books that you read and it's like fluffy. It's like it's in your face, and it's super, super valuable. So grab that one if you get a chance. Okay.
Yeah, sure. I'll get it on Amazon tonight.
Yeah. So really quickly, I want to ask you, just as kind of more of a fun question. So you're obviously down there at Raw Revive headquarters at Revive Gym, all kinds of elite athletes and coaches down there. In terms of bodybuilders in person, like who's like the person that like is the freakiest, or just kind of caught you off guard? Like you saw him on Instagram, but when you saw him in person, you're like, dude, that guy's like crazier than I thought.
I mean, Nick. Ian is freaky. Don't get me wrong. He walks around like huge all the time. Like he's just a big guy because he's taller too. But Nick is just, and I've known Nick for years too. That's the thing. And I've seen him in person for years. And I've seen him pose probably like a couple dozen times, so it's like, but you're never like not blown away by it. I'm just like, and especially, when you see him train and stuff like that, it's just like, there's just muscle on top of muscle. And like when people ask, like, there's levels to this, I'm like, buddy, you don't even know. There are levels to this. And that boy's top 5 at the Olympia. So he's the one. But dude, talking about the gym, I didn't even get to say anything. I want to just do a quick little plug, like the Revive Gym and like the Revive team down here. Like, I mean, it really is special. Like there's not a better environment. Everyone's there, like getting after it. Even not everybody in the gym is a bodybuilder. Not everyone, not at all, not even close. But everybody is like super interested in bettering their physique. So like nobody looks at you weird if you're like throwing heavy weights around, or if you're making noise, or if you're slamming weights a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it's a bodybuilder's gym. You're there for a purpose, and that's to get better. And if anything, like people love that. And that's the coolest thing about it. It's the best equipped gym I've ever been to, with the best atmosphere and the biggest conglomeration of like the highest level athletes ever. I mean, at one point we had like 4 people on the Olympia stage in the gym at the same time. Like that's crazy. Like we had, Bumstead's Mr. Olympia, classic physique Mr. Olympia. Nick was top 5. Ian was 7th. Those 2 guys also were 1 and 2 at the Arnold. There are several other pros in the gym, like Melissa Bumpson's here, Courtney King is here. She's a Miss Olympia for bikini, and it's like, it's just crazy. Like it's now, and I for people like me, I'm just a fan. You know what I mean? Like I'm a fan first. So like I see all these people. Don't get me wrong. I chat with them all, and they're all very nice people. But I'm like, I'm still a fan. So it's like just mind blowing to think like, wow, like there's this many. Kyle Wilkes is there now. I know you had him on the podcast, and his athlete Anthony Montello. Like it's just everybody. If you need a place to train and you're looking for a move, probably come down to Revive, Stuart, Florida.
For sure, man. No, I've had Nick on, I've had Matt Berzicott on, Kyle Wilkes was on just yesterday. I've had a lot of the crew down there. And it's really exciting from an outsider's perspective to kind of look and just say, wow, like that's unique, that's special. And that's why I love having you guys on. There's a reason why you guys are kind of all coming together. And, I have Revive products. I've had raw products. I have some of my clients taking, the raw protein. So, there's a reason why though, all of you guys have kind of come together. All of your guys' coaching businesses are exploding. The gym is exploding. The supplement companies and brands is exploding. It's not by luck. It's
right.
There's a reason, because you guys are next level individuals. You guys have that community. And I love bringing you guys on because it's a breath of fresh air in a very lackadaisical, lazy, complacent world that we live in. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're going to be in that area and this atmosphere, like at that gym, whether you just go to the gym or you work for Revive and whatnot, like you're going to be forced to level up. Like truthfully, you know what I mean? Like they're hard, you know what I mean? They're firm, but that's because they know that they work harder than anybody. So when they ask you to do something, like they would have done it 10 times over already. So it's like, hard, but fair. And so it just forces you to be better. So if you're that type of person that like needs that or wants that, which I would say most of us are, then like this is the place for you. And they're very welcoming too. Like it's a very like a family affair. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. And one thing, Alan Kress is another person I've had on my podcast, but all of you guys that I've brought on, I mean, you guys are down to earth. You're obviously taking time to jump on this podcast. It's not Fuad's podcast. It's not Joe Rogan. I've had conversations through DMs with Matt Jansen and Dom and all those guys. And it's like, I'm just a gym owner in Iowa that has a podcast, and, you guys are willing to take the time to have a conversation with me. Like for me, like that's encouraging. And it's just encouraging to know that within the fitness industry, there are genuine people, there are real people, and there are people that really want to help other people. Because let's be honest, the bodybuilding community and the fitness industry, there's a lot of boneheads within those communities, and there's a bad rap in those communities, and rightly so. So it's a breath of fresh air. Now, I want to kind of wrap things up. Justin, do you have any final thoughts or any final words that you would like to leave myself and the listeners? At this time, I'd love to have you share that. And then where can people connect with you? Where can people find you? And where can people follow along?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I know I've touched on a lot, and definitely went into some more personal things. But that was like the goal of today. I wanted people to know that they're not alone. So my message is like, if you're struggling with something, don't white knuckle your way through it. There's a lot of resources out there that I didn't take advantage of, and I wish that I had sooner. And that's always the cliche, like, if only I had known sooner. It's like, well, I knew and I didn't do it. And so, now that and you're hearing it from another person that has been in those same shoes, because, I have people that reach out to me saying they look up to me and whatnot. And, that's super humbling. And at the same time, then I feel a responsibility to like, okay, I need to be a good role model for that kid, because they're a young kid. He's probably got, a lot of good things going for him. And I'm sure he's just feeling down on his luck and whatnot. And so like, don't white knuckle your way through things. There's resources out there to get help. And so, Connecting with me though on Instagram is probably the best way. That I'm really active on it. My Instagram handle is J_Jacoby32. I have a coaching link in my description as well. Feel free to just, send me a message or whatnot. I'm always there to like chit chat. People can ask me questions all the time. I give out a ton of free content on my Instagram, but that's the whole point. I'm in it to help people. So, Instagram is pretty much my primary form of social media. And so if you want to follow along my journey and, learn more from me and connect with me, then just give me a follow and I'll shoot you a follow back.
Very cool. So Justin, after you, whether it's this year or next year, after you receive your IFBB Pro Card, I'd love to have you come back on and kind of share that experience. Would you be down with that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'd be happy to come back on anytime.
Cool. And then I can introduce you as IFBB Pro, right?
I can't wait. I want that title in front of my name so badly. So it'll happen. For
sure, man. So Justin, I just want to thank you for taking some time to chop it up with me and just kind of share your story with myself and the Behind the Muscle podcast listeners.
Absolutely. Thanks, Quentin. I really appreciate you having me on.
For sure. You're welcome. So guys, gals, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, whether you're tuning in through YouTube or you're listening on your favorite podcast platform. I just want to say thank you. If it wasn't for you guys, the podcast wouldn't exist. The YouTube is growing. The Instagram is growing. Has nothing to do with me, has everything to do with you guys supporting, you guys subscribing, and it's greatly appreciated. 3 things I would ask of you. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's very important because I release these episodes first on YouTube, and then I share them on all the other podcast platforms. Sometimes before I make the post on Instagram that the podcast is now available, it's already been released on YouTube the night before or earlier in the day. So hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Also, if you are on YouTube, why don't you go to the comment section and leave a comment in terms of your favorite takeaway from Justin's story and what he shared with us today. I love getting those comments on YouTube, and I appreciate all of the comments and the encouraging words. So go ahead, leave a comment. That is always greatly appreciated. The third thing, take this episode and make sure you share it on all of your social media platforms, especially Instagram. Make sure you tag Justin and tag Behind the Muscle. Why is that important? Because that's how more people find the podcast, more people listen to the podcast, and most importantly, that's how more people are positively impacted. That's really my end game with the podcast, is that people listen to these coaches and bodybuilder stories, and some way, somehow they're positively impacted. So make sure you're sharing this episode on especially your Instagram platform and all your social media platforms. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.